up on New Day at Arirang. The World Health Organization says COVID-19 is spreading like wildfire, warning that we shouldn't take Omicron for granted. This comes as the number of new infections globally reached an all-time high of 2.6 million in a single day. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and his Russian counterpart held phone talks to discuss cooperation to ease tensions on the Ukrainian border due to a buildup of Russian troops. And massive unrest in Kazakhstan continues as local media reports say 18 law enforcement personnel were killed and hundreds others injured due to riots in Almaty.
Hello and welcome to this Friday edition of New Day at Arirang. I'm Mark Broom.
And I'm Kim Mo-gan. Over the next hour, we'll take a look at the big news stories of the day and get expert insights on the issues facing Korea and the world.
We certainly will, but we begin with the COVID-19 situation here in South Korea. Authorities are leaning toward gradually easing social distancing measures as the number of new infections has been on the steady decline.
Yes, but the South Korean government is coming under fire over its recent decision to extend vaccine passes to more facilities. For more on this and other updates, we have our reporter Shin Yoon in the studio with us. Good morning, Yoon.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So let's start with the local situation. How many new cases are we expecting for today?
Right, so we're expecting the daily tally to remain near the 4,000 mark. From midnight to 9 p.m. Thursday, South Korea reported 3,296 new COVID-19 infections. Now, this was down 183 cases from the day before and around 1,000 fewer cases than a week ago. The number of severely ill patients was also the lowest in more than 3 weeks on Thursday at 882. Authorities attribute the decline to the booster shot campaign. Health authorities say the senior population, specifically those 60 and up, have actively received their extra jabs. As of yesterday, 80% had taken a booster, and take a listen to how it has played out.
The number of confirmed cases among seniors is declining as more of them are getting booster shots. In the first week of December, those aged 60 and above accounted for 35.8% of the total infections. This proportion has now decreased to 15.6%.
Okay, well, that's good news. We can give the government credit for that. But there is some controversy regarding the vaccine passes. Earlier this week, a court in Seoul ruled that passes shouldn't be required for students to enter private educational facilities. And now lawyers for plaintiffs are pushing for more facilities to be revoked from this system.
Right. The fight against vaccine passes is becoming more fierce in South Korea ever since the Seoul Administrative Court suspended the previous rule requiring vaccine passes at cram schools or study cafes. Many people said the policy should be re-examined as a whole. And many expressed concerns about how the government infringed on individuals' rights and instead forced vaccinations on people who aren't able to or are unwilling to get vaccinated because they're either pregnant or have underlying health conditions. And those complaints were further amplified over the government's decision to adopt vaccine passes at essential businesses like supermarkets. And plaintiffs are demanding vaccine passes be lifted at more facilities, which include supermarkets, restaurants, and cafes. But the government insists vaccine passes are needed to ensure a gradual return to normal life. Now, in the coming hours, a court hearing will be held on this topic, and authorities will argue why they think vaccine passes are necessary. They did hint at reaching a middle ground, though, as they said they would review plans to expend those eligible for vaccine pass exemptions. Now, this is mainly those who have underlying health conditions that make it difficult for them to get vaccinated.
So this issue of controversy of vaccine passes is not only an issue here in South Korea, but other countries as well.
Right, definitely. It has been a heated topic over in France as well, especially since French President Emmanuel Macron said he wanted to make the lives of the unvaccinated very complicated, so they would end up having to get jabbed. Now, his plan to do this was to strengthen vaccine pass rules. Originally, people in France could show proof of vaccination or a negative PCR test result to enter public venues or take trains. But due to the spread of Delta and Omicron, the government decided to drop the test option, which means only those with vaccine passes will be allowed to enter. And after a tumultuous debate, the French Parliament on Thursday approved the president's plans. Now, this legislation legislation will go to the Senate before a final vote is made in the National Assembly. If passed, it will take effect from January 15th and apply to those over 16. And Italy has also decided to mandate vaccines for those over 50. Starting February 15th, public and private workers over the age 50 will only be able to go to work when they obtain a super green pass. Now, this will only be given to those who are fully vaccinated or who have recovered from COVID-19. And Sweden also advised on Wednesday to extend vaccine passes at restaurants and cultural venues from next week. Though it's not a legal requirement, the Swedish Public Health Agency strongly advised businesses to require vaccine passes voluntarily.
All right, Yoon, as always, thank you so much for your report. Have a great weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, with the Omicron variant driving up COVID-19 cases globally, the World Health Organization is warning a, quote, tsunami of cases is overwhelming global healthcare systems.
And due to the strain, many parts of the world, including Europe, the U.S., are setting new milestones for fresh infections. Kim Hyo-sun with this report.
The WHO chief says the Omicron variant should not be dismissed as a mild form of COVID-19.
While Omicron does appear to be less severe compared to Delta, especially in those vaccinated, it does not mean it should be categorized as mild. Just like previous variants, Omicron is hospitalizing people and it's killing people. In fact, the tsunami of cases is so huge and quick that it is overwhelming health systems around the world.
Speaking at a press briefing in Geneva on Thursday, he said record numbers of people are catching the virus, causing hospitals to become overwhelmed in many parts of the world. Just under 9.5 million new COVID-19 cases were reported to the WHO last week, a 71% on-week increase. However, the WHO chief said even this is an underestimate. In addition, according to Our World in Data, a global statistical site, over 2.6 million new cases were reported worldwide on January 4th. This comes as Europe, as well as North, Central, and South Americas, are seeing a drastic surge in Omicron cases. Data, however, show the number of deaths is declining. Due to Omicron, the EU reported over 1 million new cases on Wednesday, a record single-day rise. The number has increased rapidly since the last week of December. The U.S. is also grappling with Omicron, with over 4 million new cases reported throughout the past 7-day period, ending Wednesday. According to data released by Johns Hopkins University, this is a whopping 89% jump from the previous week. Israel is also witnessing a record number of new infections, with over 16,000 new cases reported on Wednesday. This is a record high for the country since the onset of the pandemic. Its health authorities warn that Israel needs to brace for the worst, as it could log nearly 50,000 new daily infections in a week from now. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
In other news, the UK Health Security Agency has confirmed someone in Britain has contracted the H5 bird flu. The agency says the unidentified person tested positive after coming into close contact with infected birds. Marking the first human case of a H5-type bird flu, Brits have been advised not to touch sick or dead birds. It's extremely rare for avian flu to pass from birds to humans and has only occurred a small number of times in the UK previously. Now, North Korea claims it test-fired a hypersonic missile on Wednesday, and it successfully hit a target 700 kilometers away. Seoul is closely cooperating with Washington to verify the details. Bae Eun-ji reports.
North Korea said it has successfully conducted a test launch of what it claims to be a hypersonic missile. But the North leader Kim Jong-un did not attend the firing. The regime's state-run Korean Central News Agency reported Thursday that the missile detached from its rocket booster and maneuvered 120 kilometers laterally before precisely hitting a target 700 kilometers away. It added that the test also confirmed the missile's stability to operate in winter. Hypersonic missiles are seen as a game-changer as they fly at a speed of at least 5 times the speed of sound, or more than 6,000 kilometers per hour. This gives little time for a defensive response as the missiles can reach targets anywhere in the world within an hour. Unlike ballistic missiles that gain altitude before returning on steep trajectories, hypersonic weapons travel at lower altitudes. Also, hypersonic missiles are harder to defend against because they are easier to maneuver. Last September, the North first launched a hypersonic missile named Hwasong-8. It traveled 200 kilometers at around 3 times the speed of sound. If what the North claims it has achieved is true, the regime may have succeeded in developing a hypersonic missile system in just 3 months. But South Korea's military reportedly said that based on the research it has done so far, the North's claim doesn't appear to be completely true. It also said Japan's claim that the missile traveled 500 kilometers is also not true. South Korea is currently under close cooperation with the U.S. to conduct studies on the missile to verify the details.
The missile was detected using various assets owned by Korea and the U.S., and we are capable of responding to it. We also continue to strengthen our defense capabilities.
Seoul's foreign ministry said Thursday that this is a violation of UN Security Council resolutions, as the North is banned from any kind of ballistic missile development. It also said that for now, they have not been informed of any upcoming Security Council meeting, but experts say that given the situation, one may be held soon. The Unification Ministry said it will not make any hasty decisions and will instead view the situation from a wider perspective. Peunji, Arirang News.
And in response to the latest missile launch, the U.S. says it's not taking lightly any new military capability by North Korea. In this region, China called on the regime to return to dialogue, while Japan expressed its deep regret over the North's continued missile tests. Our North Korean affairs correspondent Kim Da-mi reports.
The U.S. State Department has said Washington takes any new military capability by North Korea seriously and that it's assessing the specific nature of the regime's latest missile launch. This is what a State Department spokesperson told Yonhap News Agency on Wednesday when asked if North Korea's missile test warranted additional concern for the U.S. and its allies. Condemning Pyongyang's continuous testing of ballistic missiles that destabilize the region and the international community, the U.S. official said Washington is consulting closely with its allies to determine what steps to take next. Earlier that day, the State Department also called the latest launch a violation of multiple UN Security Council resolutions, as well as a threat to the international community. Responding to the launch, China pressed for the resumption of talks.
Under the current situation, all parties concerned should keep in mind the big picture, be cautious with their words and actions, adhere to the right direction of dialogue and consultation, and work together to advance the political settlement on the peninsula issue.
Beijing emphasized that exchanges and cooperation between countries will promote mutual understanding and trust, rather than targeting or undermining the interests of third parties. Japan condemned the North, saying the regime's missile tests pose a grave threat.
We find it truly regrettable that North Korea has continued to fire missiles from last year. The government wants to strengthen its vigilance and surveillance more than ever. We are now conducting a detailed and urgent analysis.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres also urged the North to return to diplomatic dialogue. According to UN spokesperson Stéphane Dujarric on Wednesday, the Secretary General reiterated that diplomatic engagement and dialogue are the only methods to secure peace on the Korean peninsula. Citing experts, the AP said the North's launch, the first of its kind since October, signals it's not interested in rejoining denuclearization talks anytime soon. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
Kurt Campbell, the Indo-Pacific coordinator at the White House, says China's cooperation is crucial when dealing with North Korea. Speaking at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace on Thursday, he said Washington-Beijing cooperation is vital to tackle Iran and North Korea's nuclear issues. He highlighted the two superpowers need to coordinate closely on areas of mutual interest by engaging in constructive and positive discussions. Campbell also said working with China on the climate is important, stressing experts from the two sides need to cooperate to cut emissions and tackle global warming. The U.S. and Russian defense chiefs spoke over the phone Thursday in a bid to de-escalate tensions over Ukraine. The Pentagon says U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin spoke with his Russian counterpart, Sergei Shoigu, to discuss risk reduction near Ukraine's borders. The talks precede a working-level meeting between Washington and Moscow and Geneva on Monday. The two sides, despite 2 rounds of talks between their presidents, have, thus far, failed to reach any deal. Russia is demanding security guarantees that limits NATO expansion eastward and prohibits Ukraine joining the alliance. The US and its allies have rejected the demands and warned of severe sanctions if Ukraine is invaded. Now it's time for On Point, where we speak to experts to delve deeper into the biggest news stories in the spotlight right now. The first full week of 2022 is almost at an end, and many of us who really wanted to stick to our New Year's resolutions may have already just packed it all in and slipped back into our old bad habits, whether it's to quit smoking, start exercising, or put that little bit of extra effort in at work or school once the New Year glow has dissipated, and it dissipates quite quickly, unfortunately, these days. Many of us find ourselves sliding back despite having the best of intentions when we start.
Yes. So we wanted to take a close look at the psychology of New Year's resolutions, especially at a time like this, when we're all weighed down by the seemingly never-ending pandemic and all its related restrictions on our lives. So for more, we are joined by Sandra McDermott, a mindset and life coach at the Life Coach School. Sandra, hello. Good morning.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, great to see you.
Good to see you.
So first, can you tell us why so many of us fail miserably when it comes to sticking to our New Year's resolutions? Is it because we have too high goals?
Well, I think there's 3 real reasons why we don't stick to our resolutions well. One is it's because of too high goals. They're unrealistic. They're also often unclear, our goals. And we often use all or nothing thinking. And what I mean by that is we're either in or we're out. There's no middle ground. There's no room for failure or setbacks. So what I suggest is, number one, you don't set an unrealistic goal, and we know what's unrealistic. So if you want to lose a bunch of weight, give yourself enough time, for example. Just get really clear and specific on your goal, and then you have a much higher chance of success. The other thing is going to this all or nothing thinking. When you have a setback, and as you've mentioned in your opening thing, a lot of us have already had that setback. If we don't use all or nothing thinking, then we can get right back on. Yeah, we had a setback, but you know what? We can get back on, because that's the reality of any sort of habit change. It takes repeated coming back to it for us to actually get anywhere with it.
Yeah, it's very much like when people set themselves a weight loss target and then they hit that weight, they kind of go back to their old ways of eating, or people who quit smoking think, oh, 1 cigarette here and there won't matter, and next thing they know, they're hooked on smoking again. But as a life coach, when clients come to you, what are the most common lifestyle goals people want to change? And as a general rule, is there one thing all of us can keep in mind when we have realistic goals on how we can ensure that we follow through?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the first point, common goals are exactly what you would expect them to be. Exercise more, lose some weight, cut back or quit drinking or quit smoking, that sort of thing. But people also come to life coaching for bigger goals that they've always wanted to attain and they just haven't got there. So things like, I've always wanted to write a book. I've always wanted to live in a different country. I have my mind on a certain job. So those are the main reasons that people will come to a life coach, and the common lifestyle choices they'll try for. My biggest piece of advice to everyone is to know why you want it. And when I say why you want it, I want you to have a lot of reasons why. For example, I had one client come to me this week who said she wanted to cut back on her drinking. And the reason she gave me was she wanted to reduce her risk of cancer. Great, that all sounds really admirable. But it's only one reason. And I asked her to give me up to 20 reasons why. And the reason I say that is because the next thing she knows, she'll be looking at a news report like you publish, and I'm sure you've seen them, where they'll all of a sudden say, drinking is actually good for cancer. And then her motivation will be wobbling. So if she has other reasons like, I want to fit into my trousers better, or I want to sleep better, or I want to, just be a better example for my children, then you're pulling on different reasons for why you want to do it.
Well, that is very helpful. I'm sure I will keep that in mind. But I was to ask, Sandra, since we're in the middle of a global pandemic, have you noticed more clients coming to you for help regarding the tightened restrictions and, virus-related lockdowns?
Yeah, so what I would say is it's not specifically the restrictions and everything, it's the uncertainty that we're all been made so much more aware of. Life was always uncertain, but we didn't really see it. The pandemic has shown it to us in our face. We don't plan anything the same way anymore because we never know if things are going to happen the way we think they're supposed to happen. And that's where people have come to me a lot more, because mindset and life coaching helps you manage that awareness of the uncertainty and helps you bring back control into your life. The uncertainty was always there, but now people need more methods and opportunities to see how they can manage it for themselves. And that's where life coaching, mindset coaching can be really, really helpful.
Well, it sounds like I need to reserve a one-on-one with you, Sandra. But what advice would you give to people who have a real sense of depression falling over them, be it perhaps they've lost their job due to the pandemic, or they just feel helpless and, like you say, unsure of the future? What advice would you give to those people that have this pandemic blues?
Yeah. Okay, so my first bit of advice is, yeah, it's going to feel bad, right? I mean, we are going to feel helpless, depressed. This is not a wonderful situation. And I think we often try to resist feeling bad, feeling negative emotion. And the first thing we can do is just say, actually, I don't like this. I feel uncomfortable. I feel sad. I feel depressed. And just let ourselves feel bad and not make ourselves feel bad about feeling bad. We'll often do things like say we shouldn't feel bad because we're so lucky in other ways or whatever. Don't add guilt. Don't add judgment. Just let yourself feel bad sometimes. And then if you can, try to get clear on maybe what's specifically making you feel bad. So that if it's maybe it's lack of connection with people. You haven't seen people very often because you've been staying at home. If you know specifically that's the issue, maybe you can work on how you can address that. Is it lack of variety because you're not doing a lot of activities? What could you ask yourself? Our brains know a lot more than we think. If we just ask, what should I do here? What can I do that might be interesting and bring back some variety? So there's a lot of things we can do, but the first thing is to just accept that it might not feel great. If you're in a downward spiral and it's getting worse, you may need to look for some professional help. And there's no shame in that. That is, given the situation that we're in, there's a lot more people who have needed that. And I don't think people should feel bad about that.
Well, that was some healing discussion. Sandra, it was a pleasure speaking to you, and we appreciate your insights. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Welcome to Dialogue This Week. In this corner, we invite guests from in and out of Korea to talk about a wide variety of issues ranging from culture and sports to the latest trends around the world. Now, though the COVID-19 pandemic stays with us even into the new year, it doesn't mean our favorite sports events will go away. In fact, there are many sporting events to look forward to in 2022 and what's being dubbed a year of mega sports events. Now, these includes the Beijing Winter Olympics, which is set to kick off next month, the 19th Asian Games in Hangzhou scheduled for September, and of course, the 2022 Qatar World Cup, which is in store for November. To get a glimpse into what we can expect at this year's games and which athletes to keep a closer eye on, we are joined by sports commentator and actor Jaemin Park and Jargal Sokbatar, the competition department director of the Mongolian Football Federation, who's also a match commissioner at both FIFA and AFC, both joining us through Skype. Good morning to you both. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year, too. Well,
it's sports year. Yes.
Sports year. Well, it seems like we have an exciting lineup for sports for this year, like we just said. So let's start right away. Jaemin, like I've mentioned, the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics is set to kick off on February 4th until the 20th, and it's just a little under a month away from us. So this is the first Winter Olympics and the second Olympics to be held amid the pandemic. Since you've had some experience as a sports commentator for snowboarding and basketball at the Pyeongchang and Tokyo Olympics, respectively, what significance does this event have in the sports world for both fans and athletes?
Well, as you mentioned, show must go on and sports must go on. So since the pandemic, numerous major sports events have been canceled or delayed. Not only athletes, but coaches lost their jobs or opportunities. A lot of my friends missing out the 2020 Tokyo Olympic Games since it has been 1 year delayed. A lot of my friends who represented the Korean national team has had to retire, or even some men, athletes, had to join the army. So show must go on, as I mentioned, and this is a really serious problem. Sports business is one of the key industries. It affects many other businesses like domino. So bringing back the sports events is not only a big news for the athletes, but also for the human society as a whole. And moreover, people can have an opportunity to get linked together once again. Since the pandemic, every people has been disconnected and locked up. So maybe bringing back the sports can gain some energy to beat this pandemic this year.
Yes, I bet. I assume, many of our viewers will be excited for the games as much as I am. Now, let's bring Jargal into conversation. Jargal, how do you see things? You're a match commissioner for both FIFA and AFC, and leading up to the 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar in November, which we will get to talk about later in our discussion. There are numerous Football Association League matches. How significant is it that football or soccer matches returned a step closer to normal this year?
Okay, thank you very much. As Jamie said, show must go on. And from the football perspective, FIFA and AFC are doing a very hard job, to bring all the football matters into the everyday's life. So 2 years ago, AFC and FIFA produced a very special and clear regulation on the COVID matter. Basically, to return to football or match operation across the goals during the COVID-19. So those regulations give us very clear instruction on how to organize the football mega events domestically and internationally. Obviously, we had very challenging times to organize the FIFA World Cup qualifiers and Asian Cup 2023 qualifiers for the last 2 years, and many matches were postponed and shifted. Like Group A matches in China supposed to be organized in China, but they had to be shifted to UAE. And our match Mongolia against Japan, this is a huge event. We're talking about the business side of the event. Japan coming to Mongolia is a huge thing, but because of the COVID and the pandemic issue, we had to switch the venue, and then we had to organize that match in Japan. So it affects actually everybody. And millions of people are involved in football or soccer events. So that means we have to continue organizing those events. As you mentioned, in less than 11 months, the FIFA World Cup final is approaching very fast. So we have to continue.
Yes, like you said, it's something that will bring back light into our lives, especially at this hard time. So now, let's turn to Jaemin again. So the last Winter Olympics were held in South Korea at the Pyeongchang County. And other than the omnipresent coronavirus, what is new for this year? Are there any new events that have been added to the program for the upcoming Beijing Olympics?
Oh, so many. So we have to open the box. It's going to be a whole package of new sports events. So the IOC's recent main slogan is gender equality. IOC tried to put many different events together which were gender divided before, such as ski jumping. So ski jumping was considered to be too dangerous, which doesn't make sense in 2022. So women's ski jump was added at 2014 Sochi Olympic Games for the first time in the Olympic history. And just like women's ski jump, we will be able to enjoy this year mixed snowboard cross, women's single bobsled, man and woman freestyle big air, mixed freestyle ski team aerial, short track mixed relay, and mixed ski jump events as well. And this will be the opportunity to extend the category of Winter Olympic Games, and it will be much more fun watching the mixed relay disciplines, as I mentioned, such as ski jumping or snowboard cross, or even short track skating. So if you're a big fan of sports, it's really fun to watch the differences between men and women. So it cannot be the same, but the fun is always the same. So if you're a big fan of Winter Sports Game, 2022 will be a huge leap.
Wow, I must look out for it. Well, and also, Jaemin, according to a Grace Note, the leader in entertainment metadata, South Korea can hope for 5 gold, 4 silver, and 2 bronze medals at this year's Olympics. What do you think about this? And can you also walk us through what events South Korea is strong in? Are there any specific performances we should look out for?
Well, that is very optimistic. Well, the Korea Sports and Olympic Committee had a media day last week, and they actually proposed that Korea national team is aiming 1 to 2 gold medals for this year's Olympic Games, which is the lowest goal in the past 30 years. So Korea is aiming the gold from, as we all can expect, short track, which was always the strongest game for the Korean national team. Min Jung-choi and Yoon Gi-kwak, the former Olympic gold medalist, will lead the team, and they're still strong. And I had the chance to meet them a few days ago at the training center, and they were pretty optimistic and they were pretty in good shape, especially the national team leader, Kwak, said that this will be his last Olympic Games for his career. So he was eager to burn everything down he got to gain his last gold medal. And also former silver medalist Sang-ho Lee from snowboard alpine discipline is another dark horse aiming the gold medal for this year. And so he's ranked currently #1 in the world ranking list right now. So what I'm expecting this year, probably 3 gold medals.
Wow.
Hopefully, hopefully that happens.
Yes, let's hope for that. Well, I must also ask, what excites you the most about Winter Olympics? And do you have any rising star athletes from teams outside of Korea?
Well, it's really hard to predict a rising star. So I will go for the fun part to watch this year. So who will be the star this year? Well, personally, I'm looking after Esther Ledeska, the Czech Republic snowboard racer who won 2 gold medals from 2 different disciplines in ski. So she won 2 gold medals from alpine skiing and snowboarding in 2018 Pyeongchang Olympic Games. And how hard this is almost impossible. So it's like winning 2 gold medals from basketball and volleyball. So you use the same ball, but it's totally different. So being on snow, alpine ski and alpine snowboarding is different, but she won 2 gold medals. So I'm looking forward, will she win 2 more gold medals this year? And also U.S ski legend Mikaela Shiffrin, who won 2 different gold medals in the Olympic Games, and Shaun White, the snowboard legend. who won 3 gold medals. So they're competing this year as well. So I'm looking forward, will they extend their gold medal list this year or not?
Well, I'm sure I'm going to not miss out those games. Now, let's turn to Jargal. Later this year in September, from the 10th to the 25th, the 19th Asian Games will be held in China again in the city of Hangzhou. I heard that the Asian Games were not supposed to overlap with the World Cup in 1 year, and what happened? And so from now on, are we expecting this overlap to continue every 4 years?
Okay, that's a good question. Usually, World Cup finals organized during the summertime until 2022, until the Qatar. All the FIFA finals used to be organized in the summertime in warm areas, but this year is very special. So, as you mentioned, the Asian Games as well organized usually in August and September, and this time I think those two big events are not kind of overlapping as well. There is some 2 months or 3 months time between those two events. And in Asian Games, usually teams are participating with the under-23 teams. So that means it's not kind of two exact teams are playing in the two competitions. Like FIFA World Cup finals, the A team is participating and under-23 teams are playing for the Asian Games most of the times. So it's okay. For the next FIFA World Cup, which are plan to be organized in the next 4 years, and Asian Games, it could probably have to sit down again and see how the treatment of the two competitions will go up. If it's gonna be at the same time, probably it have to be postponed or move earlier. And again, the hosting countries. Weather issues are significant as well on that case.
So we'll still have to wait and see. Well, Jaemin, at the 2018 Asian Games held in Indonesia, esports were featured as a demonstration sport, meaning medals won in the sport were not officially counted. And now these esports are set to make an official debut at this year's Asian Games. So can you tell us, for our viewers, what exactly are esports?
Well, Mogyun, do you play games?
Not really.
Well, then you're not an esports person. So esports is a form of competition using video games. So if you want to form a competition, you need a rule, you need players, and you need an opponent. So now video game competitions, particularly between professional players individually or as teams, now has a form of sports. So video games being a sports is now happening. And combining E, which stands for electronic, and sports together, a whole new new form of sports is gaining attention all around the world of sports. Well, Korea won 2 gold medals at 2018 Asian Games, and as we all know, young generation love playing video games, and this is now not just a game but a culture. And it is considered to be one of the biggest sports industries in the world. So Faker, as you just saw on the video, he's known as the most expensive professional athlete in the world.
Wow.
Well, that's happening right now. So winning the gold medal will be one of the biggest news for the esports fans in Korea, not only in Korea, but all around the world. So everyone is actually focusing who's going to win the gold medal in 2022 Asian Games.
Right. Well, now let's also turn our discussion to the World Cup. The 2022 FIFA World Cup is being hosted by Qatar this year in November. And isn't the World Cup usually scheduled for the summertime? So what else is different about this year's World Cup? Jargal.
Okay, yes, sure. Obviously, Arab countries, especially Qatar, during the summertime, the temperature rises so high, over 30, 40 degrees. So from the match organization perspective, the Qatar World Cup will be very, very different from the previous finals. So it will be organized in November, December, winter period. And that's one of the big change of that. And another change is it will be the first ever World Cup final organized in Arab countries, and second in Asia after South Korea and Japan. co-organized this event. And another big significant event is this will be the last World Cup final with the 32 teams. And from the next edition, which will be organized in Mexico, USA, and Canada, the participating number of the teams will be increased to 48 countries. So that means there are more teams and national teams unable to participate this prestigious event. And Qatar is preparing very well. Myself went to Qatar and visited some of the venues for that event. And they are preparing 8 venues for that event. And from the economic point of view, they are actually very good solution for that. As we all know, the World Cup in Brazil and in South Africa, after the event, most of the stadiums are not used. We call it kind of white elephant issue. So Qatar FA and Qatar government decided that after the final, they will take down 4 of those venues because those venues are not kind of standard established venues. They can be taken down very easily, So from the economic point of view.
All right. Yes, I think we're experiencing some technical difficulties. We apologize for that. But before we let you go, Jaemin, who or what nations are on your radar for World Cup performances?
Okay, I'm going to make this short. I'm not a football person. But still, the FIFA ranked number 1 right now is Belgium. So I'm looking forward for Belgium because I love Belgium chocolate.
All right. Well,
and let's see what happens because Belgium they were always a strong competitor, but as far as I know, for the recent World Cups, they didn't really win the championship at all. So maybe this year World Cup we will witness a new rising country, which will be Belgium. Looking forward, or it could be Korea, or it could be Brazil. But personally, I'm looking for Belgium.
And what about Jargal? What are you looking for? Which?
Okay, as an Asian, I have to be on that side. So we usually support all the Asian countries, like South Korea and Japan, and they are actually in a good way to get the final. I was the match commissioner for the South Korea against Syria, which was organized last October in Ansan. So I had I've been several times as a match commissioner for the World Cup for the Korean matches. So I think I bring a luck to the team because that match was very, very difficult match against Syria. They had to win. So I think the Song Hyun-min scored the last minute winner, and then from that moment, South Korea started winning and back to the track. So I think by March, when they play against Iran, after that we can say that South Korea will be 100% qualified for the final. So as I said, I will go forward to see all the Asian teams get success. And from my personal point of view, I usually support Italy.
All right. I will make sure to keep an eye on all of them as well. Thank you so much for your efforts, Jaemin and Jargal, for your discussions today. Hope to talk to you again soon. Have a great New Year.
Happy 2022.
Moving on now, registration for overseas voting for South Korea's March 9th presidential election closes in a day from now. Registered voters will likely have a more convenient voting experience this time around, as there will be more polling booths and voting hours will be extended if this revision to the law is passed. Lee Kyung-eun with this report.
Not enough time and a lack of polling booths are named as major difficulties for those wishing to vote from abroad.
It takes only 20 minutes to get to the consulate from where I live, but for some, it takes a whole day. I remember in the 2012 election, there was a couple, probably in their 70s or 80s, who came all the way to Nagoya from the countryside, driving 7 hours.
Plus, weather and other emergency situations like COVID-19 could also discourage people from voting. To ease these unique challenges facing overseas voters, the National Assembly's Special Committee on Political Reform has passed a bill bringing structural changes to the voting process. First, setting up more polling booths. The bill allows a polling station to be set up for each region with at least 30,000 South Korean nationals instead of the current 40,000 requirement. And there can be up to 3 polling stations under each embassy or consulate instead of the current 2. Second, giving enough time to vote. In case of natural disasters, civil war, public health emergencies, or other reasons, the respective election commission can make changes to the voting period. Third, removing complications for registration. Currently, those who have registered in the past 2 elections in a row are automatically listed, so one need to apply again. But the bill expands this benefit to more people, allowing anyone who has registered at least once before to remain on the permanent list of overseas voters. However, allowing a mail-in ballot system has not been passed due to some objections. The bills will be submitted to the upcoming plenary session and will likely be passed without controversy. And once they do, the new measures will be applied immediately to the overseas voting period set for February 23rd to the 28th. 이경은, Arirang News.
This year marks the 60th anniversary of South Korea's national ballet, opera, dance troupes and traditional pansori musical storytelling. Our cultural correspondent Kim Bok-young tells us what special performances we can enjoy in 2022.
Celebrating the 60th anniversary of their foundation, national troops have prepared a lot for this year. Let's start with ballets. From the classic repertoires to new ones, the Korean National Ballet will present all kinds of ballet this year. Jewels will kick off the new year, and 2 full-length pieces choreographed by the state-run ballet company's members, Heunan Seron and Le Corsaire, will also greet audiences again. And of course, 3 classic ballet pieces, Swan Lake, The Nutcracker, and Giselle, have also been included in the lineup. New pieces, too, have been included for this year. La Femelle Margardy, or The Wayward Daughter in English, is laced with exuberant humor, and Triple Bill will showcase 3 pieces choreographed using Chopin, Bach, and Beethoven's music. The Korean National Opera is showcasing lots of carefully selected, prestigious, yet rarely staged pieces this year. It will showcase all-time favorites, Les Contes de Hoffmann and Puccini's La Bohème. But one thing to look out for is Prince Horong in March, the Korean National Opera's first ever domestically created performance since its establishment in 1962. Next year will also be full of Verdi's pieces such as Attila, based on Italy's battles with the legendary warrior Attila, and I Vespri Stiliani, a piece known to have the most famous and grand overture. The National Changguk Company of Korea, based on pansori folk music, will showcase a highly anticipated new piece. Shakespeare's King Lear is to be turned into Changguk, and the company will also perform the enchanting love story Chunyang. And coming up in June is Peerless Pansori. The National Dance Company of Korea has been presenting versatile and innovative views on traditional Korean dancing. In April, its new show Double Bill features new performances with Goblin Party, a group of male choreographers, and a star dancer Cha Jin-yup, who was in some renowned international companies. The Vortex, one of the most widely popular repertoires, will be on stage to once again show 80 minutes of whirling energy. Kim Bok-young, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. Massive unrest in Kazakhstan continues as local media reports say 18 law enforcement personnel were killed and hundreds others injured due to riots in Almaty. Almaty police chief says more than 120 police cars, fire engines, and ambulances were burned by protesters, while over 300 shops, restaurants, and offices were damaged as well. The presidential residence and the mayor's office in the city were both set ablaze. However, the city's airport, which was seized earlier by protesters, are now under the control of military personnel. After a night of running confrontations between protesters and troops on the streets, more than 2,000 people have been arrested. The widespread protests were triggered by recent fuel price hikes, as Kazakh President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev called the unrest a terrorist threat and appealed for international assistance. 1 year since the deadly attack on the U.S. Capitol by supporters of former President Donald Trump, additional security was put in place in Washington on Thursday. Security fencing was installed near the entrances of the Capitol building, while additional police were noticeable on the day. On January 6, 2021, around 140 police officers were assaulted during the riot, while one officer who battled rioters died the day after the attack. The attack on the U.S. Capitol also led to 4 rioters dying, including one who was shot by police as she tried to climb inside the building through a shattered window. Despite being considered the worst attack on Congress since the War of 1812, the probe into the attacks has largely been played out behind closed doors. Serbian tennis star Novak Djokovic, who was denied entry into Australia to take part in one of the biggest tennis tournaments of the season, is now being kept in quarantine at a hotel in Melbourne. The world #1 tennis player remains in Australia after his lawyers launched an appeal seeking to overturn the federal government decision, as a court agreed not to deport him before a full hearing scheduled for next Monday. And Djokovic's mother slammed the decision to keep him at a hotel chosen by the government and not the one Djokovic booked.
His accommodation? Yes. Terrible. Terrible accommodation. It's just some small immigration hotel, as we can, if it's hotel at all, with some bugs, it's so dirty and the food is so terrible. So what can I say? They don't want to give him any chance to move on to some better hotel or house that he already rented.
Djokovic was denied entry into the country following criticism of an earlier decision to exempt him from the COVID-19 vaccination requirement for the Australian Open. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Good morning. It's a cold start to the day. Morning temperatures are beginning at similar levels to yesterday in the capital, but highs will go up slightly higher than yesterday, hovering above season norms in the afternoon. But the dust levels of the west of central regions remain high today. The capital and Chungcheongdo provinces will be dusty all day long. In fact, these regions could have dusty conditions through to early next week, while the East Coast will have more dry weather. Morning temperatures are 4 to 5 degrees lower in the south this morning. Daegu beginning the day at -5 degrees Celsius, Daejeon at -7 degrees. Daytime highs will be slightly higher across Korea. Seoul rising to 4 degrees Celsius. Busan and Jeju will be warm at 11 degrees. Sunny skies to feature today. There could be light snow late on Saturday night in central regions. That's including here in Seoul. So if you plan to drive early on Sunday, please bear that in mind. With that, here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that's where we're going to wrap up this edition of New Day at Arirang. We appreciate you tuning in. I'm Kim Mo-Gyan.
Yes, thank you very much for joining us. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back with another new day at Arirang on Monday at 8 a.m. Korea time. Until then, goodbye.